Hey, we're talking about Hillary Clinton, and we're going to look at Brian Williams and the great job he did breaking this story down. I'm here with the Ardent Atheist duo, Heather Henderson.
Thank you.
And Emery.
He did my gag.
We do that on the show.
I mess up a name per show at least accidentally, so when I don't mess one up, I make sure I do.
Oh, okay. So Brian Williams, we're all talking about Hillary Clinton. She didn't get taken when she passed out or when she stumbled or when she had her neurological episode is what I'm calling it. She said she got overheated and they took her in the van. Brian Williams brought on a real doctor. This is great. And here's what a real doctor had to say. This is what I want to hear.
You are an ER doc. Looking back at what is known, do you think a little bit of hospital care was best, or was it truly a situation where going to her daughter's apartment nearby, hydrating, cooling down, did the trick?
You know, the things that concern me are if I was in the emergency room and I got a call from an ambulance saying that I had a 68-year-old patient that had pneumonia, was dehydrated, and either passed out or almost passed out, I would say bring them to the emergency room right away. We need to find out, number one, what could have caused this, and then number two, we need to correct it, especially the dehydration, and just run a few tests on them to make sure it's not going to happen again. And to me, that's probably the most concerning thing, that they didn't do that. Luckily, you know, she recovered very quickly from this, so it turned out okay in this case, but you never know when that happens, and when it happens so quickly and so suddenly.
So now Brian Williams is probably going to go, wow, I never thought of that. That is 68-year-old woman who's passed. That's right. You would rush her to a. I wonder what. So you're telling me you think this is suspicious? I bet you that's what Brian Williams is going to say to that guy, right? I bet that's what he's going to say. Let's watch.
Recovered very quickly from this, so it turned out okay in this case. But you never know when that happens, and when it happens so quickly and so suddenly.
Emergency room doc, Dr. John Torres, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Oh, I guess he didn't say any of that stuff. No. He didn't go, wow, that's really curious. That makes me blah, blah, blah. What did Brian Williams do? He didn't say, wow, I never thought of that. We have an emergency medical, our specialist. This is our guy who's the expert. And he just said that he can't believe that they didn't take her to the thing. Yeah, you know, I never looked at it like that. And since you're the expert, that's why we have you here. I guess you're right.
He doesn't think clearly sometimes, you know. Ever since he was shot at in that helicopter, he's really kind of off his game. He's a little. He's
got PTSD.
That's the problem.
So he goes to Howard Dean, who is now working for one of the biggest lobbyist firms in the world. Howard Dean, who was once the Bernie Sanders of the Democratic Party. And here's what Howard Dean had to say about it.
Well, you know, I think the whole thing is sort of overblown. First of all, I agree with Dr. Torres about everything except I would not take a 68-year-old woman who was running for president of the United States to a New York City emergency room under any circumstance unless something much worse than this was going on.
Huh.
Oh, really? 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 You wouldn't, not under any circumstance. I let her die first.
Well, she'd have to wait for 3 or 4 hours in the waiting room,
right?
You know?
I'm also
old magazines.
Told, this isn't fact. This is just that they have a plan. Of course, they would have a contingency plan. Where do we take the nominee if there's a medical emergency?
Right.
They have a
gunshot.
They have a plan. They're supposed to take it to a trauma center, and they have it all set up. So they're supposed to just take her, right? So the Secret Service is just supposed to take her, but they didn't, right? And and this is bullshit. So we heard, so he's being paid to say that. Right? Or right? So he wants a job at the Clinton administration, and he's been saying a lot of garbage all this campaign, and this is more of it. Well, and this doesn't help. We all know that you take a 68-year-old lady with a history of brain trauma who passes out in the heat. You take her to you don't take her to her daughter's apartment.
What if she said no?
And that's what a doctor said. And you don't listen to her because she's ill. And she's not thinking clearly. She just passed out. So here, let's listen more.
She'll be fine. My guess is this is probably not even bacterial pneumonia, although.
So he is diagnosing her over TV, and then he sees she'll be fine. I don't know how he knows it.
I'm sorry. I need to point out that the guy who is diagnosing her over podcast is complaining about the guy who is diagnosing her over TV. Go on, please, Jimmy.
So I'm pointing out that he's doing what I'm doing.
Spade is spade, brother.
He is doing what I'm doing, and I'm not a doctor. So I don't know better. He should know better because he is a doctor. And then he says this.
I'm with Dr. Torres. You don't make diagnoses on television.
Well, you just did it.
Whoa. He just did.
You just did. That's why I said that, because you just said she's going to be fine. And she has this. But I agree. You're not supposed to make. You just fucking did it.
Right.
Let's see if he says anything else. And so here, Brian Williams, after he says this, they come back to Brian Williams, and he's going to throw it to a question to someone else, except Brian Williams takes a moment to say this. Now, you would think when the doctor said that we should have brought her to the men, they didn't. That's the thing that surprised me. He would have been like, wow, we got a story here. No, he does the opposite. Watch what Brian Williams does.
On your emergency room point, I did see a quote from an aide today saying, for just in the interest of keeping hubbub down and any discretion issues that might arise, they voted against going to the ER.
And that's enough of an explanation for Brian Williams. I heard an aide say earlier, just to keep hubbub down, they didn't. The woman's passing out. She has pneumonia. She's 68 years old. She has a history of brain trauma. Yeah, just to, I heard an aide say today, you don't want to go to it. Do you want to keep up? What kind of? He's just repeating now. He's with an uncritical eye. He takes something that someone at the Hillary Clinton campaign said and repeats it as fact, contradicting the real doctor.
You know it's a problem when Jimmy runs out of air. You know it's a beyond the pale. It makes Jimmy run out of air.
Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's unbelievable. I guess I'm the only one who's going nuts over this, because that is horrible what he just did. What he just did was like, oh yeah, I heard from an aide, they said they didn't want hubbub. So I just buy that excuse and I move on. And in fact, I repeat it in a way that makes it seem like it's dismissible. You mean that frickin' expert you brought on who said that was effed up that they didn't bring her there? Oh no, I heard from an aide though. They didn't want to keep the hubbub down. You fucking tool.
Has anyone ever called you the Mystery Science Theater of news?
Not yet.
That's really what you do.
Thank you.
This is pretty great.
I like doing that. Let's see if he has anything else. No, I think that's it.
It's 4 o'clock.
It is 4 o'clock. Here's...
Does that always happen at the top of the hour? I love that.
Yes. So now... here's Howard Dean, and we've given him a hard time on this show before because he's sold out and he's working for lobbying firms now, and he's on the wrong side of all the issues. In fact, he's been in bed with a corporatist this whole campaign instead of with a real progressive like Bernie Sanders. So we've given him a lot of hard times, and we've done it correctly. So now he can't shut up. He keeps lying in defense of Hillary Clinton, and listen to what he says. Oh, you talk too much, Howard. You talk too much. Here we go.
I think the fixation on transparency angers the press. Well, of course it angers the press. They think their business is to know everything. Given what Hillary's had to go through at the hands of the press, I wouldn't tell them anything either.
So first of all, he just said that he's advocating that the person who wants to be president of the United States, who hasn't had a press conference in over 260 some days, shouldn't talk to the press ever. I don't know if you understand, Howard. The press is us. The press is the United States. That's the citizen. They're our representative to ask you questions. Well, I wouldn't tell them anything. They're not a foreign body. They're the press in the United States. They serve us. So when you say that, Howard, what you're telling, by the way, that's a double standard, Howard, because you would never put up with that from the Republicans. Hey, I told George Bush, don't talk to the press. Really? You would never say that. So this is, again, the horribleness that Hillary Clinton brings out in Democrats is they start to sound like right-wingers. They start to have double standards. They start to disingenuously defend her horrible positions, and they start to lie to their own base. Here's where he screws up and talks too much.
This is a temporary illness. She's going to be fine.
Again, he's diagnosing over television.
I'm sure she's already Skyping with people, with donors and so forth, doing some of the campaigning.
I'm sure she's already talking to donors. I'm sure she's already... Voters? No, donors. Yeah, she's already talking with donors. You got to constantly talk to millionaires. She's already talking to millionaires today. Did you hear what I said? Probably billionaires. She's already talking with donors. She's got pneumonia. She almost died, but she's talking with donors.
She almost died.
She almost died. That's Jimmy being hyperbolic.
Take it a little further every time.
So I don't know. See, that is a slip that he goes, she's probably already talking with donors, because that's what we do.
You get back on your feet. You beg millionaires for money. Back to business as usual.
Everything's back to
feeling
normal.
good.
She's already talking to donors.
Here, have a glass of water and call this oil magnate. Feel better.
She's already reaching out to Bush. She's already reaching out to Romney donors because that's what she's doing.
Yeah, Charles Koch wants to FaceTime. Have at it.
So that's pretty revealing. Thank you, Howard Dean, for letting us know what's really going on.